Hey, I'm Danny Mazer, and you are listening to the Soul Stories podcast, an extension of Soul Stories, where we curate spaces for difficult conversations and create connection through dialogue, storytelling, and creative expression. On this season, we will be bringing you stories and poetry from an event we hosted this past April. It was called Unpacked, a creative dialogue on consent.
Hey, I'm not Danny, as you can probably tell by my voice. I'm Hannah Skews, I'm a member of Soul Stories, and Danny and I did this event in April called Unpacked, a creative dialogue on consent. We had 10 poets and storytellers, including Danny and myself, perform pieces on our personal experiences with the topic. On this episode, you'll hear performer, educator, and activist Shelsea Ochoa do a monologue-esque story with props and some audience interaction. Even though you can't see it here, hearing her story is still a very powerful experience.
If anyone else, like myself, is feeling like having a hard time hearing these really difficult stories, you can comfort yourself by reminding yourself that this is what burning rape culture to the ground looks like. So that's cool. While we're setting up real quick, you can look deeply into the eyes of your neighbor, tell them something truly honest, or just sit there. 1 second. It happens in all of these little moments. Over and over again in my life, I have been presented with two worlds, a world of consent and a world of non-consent. A world of the tying up and the untying of knots inside my throat chakra. I know both of these worlds well. Tomato that's been genetically modified to be bright red and full of water. And when you taste it, you feel like your mouth is full of a void of flavor. I'm 15 years old. I am wavering between total numbness and a state of emergency. I sleep on the streets. I grind my teeth so hard at night that it wakes people up around me. I wake up in pain, but I have no recollection of the trauma that has caused this level of stress. I'm completely disassociated. I am waking up in a squat house with a man leaning over me. I sock him in the face and I run. I am 17 years old and I wear baggy clothes. I don't want anyone to look at me. I don't want anyone to touch me. I've promised myself to keep my recent discovery a secret. That when I reach down and touch my pussy, a third of it feels completely numb, as if I have somehow erased it. I'm invited into a stranger's apartment to smoke a little bit of weed. 5 minutes later, he's high on meth, there's porn on the television, and he's standing in front of my exit with a hungry look in his face. At that perfect moment, people are pounding on the door outside. It's the neighbors. They bust in and corner him and tell me to run away and never come back. I am a young adult. I am deathly quiet, locked up inside myself. People don't know what is wrong with me. My boyfriend hugs me while I sleep, and I wake up from the touch screaming and flailing my arms. I'm I'm sleeping over at a male friend's house after drinking too much one night. I can hardly sleep that night because I'm feeling so nervous. And the next morning, he's driving me back to my car, and I am thanking him emphatically for not sexually assaulting me that night. And he slams the brakes on his car, and we stop in the middle of the street, and he looks at me in the face. And he says, "Girl, do not thank me for that. That is the absolute minimum that you should expect from any human being." In that moment, I get this glimpse into this other world. It's difficult to live here. It's difficult to lie to myself about how I feel and to try not to say the things that I think. And over many years, with the help of many people, I find myself in this whole other world. And it's difficult to live here. It's difficult to trust my body. And it's difficult to speak about how I feel. But it is so worth it. The flavor of consent culture will blossom in your mouth. It is expansive and ever-changing, like soft nectar. And then it transforms into waves of richness, tantalizing, flickering flavors, like the way light flickers upon the ocean. It is amazing what is possible in the world of consent. I find the Burning Man community that has a strong history of establishing a scaffolded culture of consent. I am posing as a nude model for an Alex Gray workshop on figure drawing. I am flying in my friend's car across the desert sky, the stars above us, and I stand up out of the roof with no shirt on, tits to the wind. I fall in love with myself, learning my body, giving myself orgasms, followed by snuggles and love, and my heart is so full. I am naked in a hot tub at sunrise with two amazing male friends. One of them starts giving me a back rub, and they both move in, suggesting a threesome. I pause, I think about it, and I say, "No, thank you." And they are both totally cool with that. I am volunteering to receive an orgasm as part of a workshop. I'm lying out on a massage table. My friend has her fingers inside me, and it is my job to speak about what feels good and how I want to be touched. I am in an apartment with a beautiful woman, and we are exploring all of the elements of her pussy by what is called clocking. We have a clock on the inside, and we have a clock on the outside. We pause at each hour within the clock. I give her time to breathe and to feel. Her sensations are like a kaleidoscope. She describes them to me. Memories come up, colors, flavors, different feelings within different parts of her body, all changing and folding over each other. She explores her inner universe. We take our time with total love and total trust. I am asking for what I want. I am comfortable with hearing no. And I am comfortable for speaking out when consent is not requested, even when it's none of my business. I am wielding the power of my voice. And now I trust myself. we are transforming our culture. We are taking the risk of letting go of our old ways and moving into a space that doesn't fit the script of our past. This can be very uncomfortable. It can be very scary, but it is so worth it. Without this transformation, love cannot exist. And imagine all of the beauty that we stand to gain when we accept this change. Thank you. And now, as a final closing activity for this portion, I invite all of us to practice. So this is how it's going to go. If you choose to participate, this is what it is. We have person one and we have person two. Person one says to the person next to them something that they want, makes a request of some kind. If you want to be silly, you can be like, I want to squeeze your cheeks. If you want to be vulnerable, you can take a risk and say something you really want. Person two, I want you to say no, thank you. And then person one, your line is thank you for taking care of yourself. I'll give you a moment to try that if you like. As we transition, thank you so much.
Hey, it's Hannah again, thanking you for your time and energy while listening to stories from Unpacked, a creative dialogue on consent on the Soul Stories podcast. I also once again and always want to thank the poets and storytellers for their vulnerability and honesty. One of the main goals of Unpacked was to offer up these narratives as a starting point for talking about consent. And I'd love to hear from you about how they impacted you. We would also be very grateful if you subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts like this one, and share this episode with the people you care about. Also, follow us on Instagram at Soul Stories Denver and find us on Facebook. We at Soul Stories are so incredibly lucky to be a part of this community. Thanks for listening and being a part of it.